Last Tuesday, I had déjà vu so strong, I stopped mid-sentence and just waited. Waited for whatever came next, like I already knew. Like the next few seconds had already happened somewhere and I was just catching up to them. And then it passed, like it always does. Gone in about 3 seconds. And the person I was talking to looked at me like I had briefly left the building. I said, "Sorry, déjà vu." They nodded. We moved on. And that was it. That is always it. Nobody talks about déjà vu seriously. Not really. You mention it. People nod, someone makes a Matrix joke, and the conversation moves on. Which is strange, because what just happened to you is one of the most genuinely mysterious experiences a human brain can produce. A moment of absolute certainty that you have already lived something that is happening for the first time. Your memory and your reality disagreeing with each other so completely that your whole body stops for 3 seconds because neither one will back down. That is not a glitch. That is something. Hi, I'm Marin Still, and last Tuesday I stopped mid-sentence. And today, I finally found out why. Here is what almost nobody tells you about déjà vu. The experience itself has been documented in human beings across every culture, every continent, every historical period that kept records. Ancient Greeks wrote about it. Medieval scholars argued about it. Hindu philosophers built entire frameworks around it. Indigenous oral traditions from 6 continents contain descriptions of it. 100% of human cultures that have ever existed have had a name for this feeling. Let that sit for a second. Not most cultures, not the majority, every single one. In the same way that every culture has a word for grief, for love, for hunger, every culture has a word for the moment when the present feels like a memory. The question is not whether ancient humans felt déjà vu. They did. The question is what they decided it meant. And the answer to that question is, according to MS, the single most consequential cognitive event in human history. But first, what is actually happening in your brain? Akira O'Connor at the University of St. Andrews, whose neuroimaging research on déjà vu was published in 2016 in the journal Neuropsychologia, found something that upended the standard explanation. For decades, scientists assumed déjà vu was a memory error, a misfiring of the familiarity system in the brain that makes something feel recognized when it is actually new, a false positive, a bug. What O'Connor found was the opposite. When subjects experienced déjà vu in the scanner, the areas of the brain associated with memory retrieval were actually quiet. What lit up instead were the frontal regions, the parts of the brain associated with decision-making, conflict resolution, and fact-checking. The parts that activate when your brain detects that something is wrong and needs to be investigated. Which means déjà vu is not your memory malfunctioning. Déjà vu is your brain's error detection system catching the malfunction and flagging it. You are not misremembering. You are noticing that something about the way your brain processed that moment does not add up. The feeling of, "I have lived this before," is not the error, it is the alarm. Chris Moulin at the University of Grenoble, who has spent his career studying memory disorders, including a condition called chronic déjà vu, where patients experience the feeling continuously, for hours, sometimes for days, describes the experience as a collision between 2 systems that are supposed to work in sequence. Your brain processes experience in layers, first perception, then recognition, then contextual memory. In déjà vu, the recognition layer fires before the contextual layer has finished loading. You feel familiar before your brain has located why. It lasts about 3 seconds because that is roughly how long it takes the contextual layer to catch up, realize there is no prior memory to attach to, and cancel the familiarity signal. 3 seconds of your brain arguing with itself about whether you have been here before. Stay with me, it gets weirder. Now go back 70,000 years. A small band of early modern humans somewhere in what is now southern Africa. 15 to 30 people. A fire. A night sky that looks different from ours because there is no light pollution within 1,000 kilometers. One of them, a young adult, let us say, is in the middle of an ordinary moment, sitting by the fire, and then it hits. The absolute certainty. I have been here before. This exact fire, this exact night, these exact people. I already know what happens next. They have no neuroimaging. They have no Akira O'Connor. They have no framework for memory error detection or frontal lobe conflict resolution. What they have is the raw experience. The world just confirmed that this moment has happened before. And if this moment has happened before, then time is not a line. Time loops. Or time is something a person can see across. Or this moment was shown to them before it arrived, by something that exists outside of time. Every explanation they can reach for leads somewhere enormous. Pascal Boyer at Washington University in St. Louis, whose work on the cognitive origins of religious belief is collected in his book Religion Explained, argues that human supernatural belief systems did not emerge from deliberate philosophical reasoning. They emerged from specific anomalous experiences that demanded explanation, and déjà vu is near the top of that list. An experience that feels like foreknowledge, that feels like prophecy, that feels like proof that some part of you exists outside the normal flow of time. Boyer's argument is this: the human brain did not evolve to ignore anomalous experiences. It evolved to explain them. Explanation leads to pattern. Pattern leads to story. Story leads to ritual. Ritual leads to religion. The feeling you had last Tuesday that lasted 3 seconds and ended with a Matrix joke, that same feeling, experienced by someone with no scientific framework to dismiss it, became the seed of something that lasted millennia. Think about what déjà vu actually feels like from the inside, without the explanation. You are not just familiar with a moment. You are certain you have already lived it, and you are right that you are certain. The certainty is real. It is neurologically produced. It is not imagination. The only thing that is wrong is the conclusion your brain draws from it. But your ancestors did not know the conclusion was wrong. David Lewis Williams, an archaeologist at the University of Witwatersrand, whose work on altered states of consciousness and prehistoric rock art produced the landmark book The Mind in the Cave, has documented the relationship between anomalous mental experiences, including states that produce déjà vu-like sensations, and the earliest symbolic art in the human record. The cave paintings at Lascaux, at Altamira, at Blombos, these were not made by people who thought of themselves as artists making decorative objects. They were made by people who had accessed states of consciousness where the boundaries between present, past, and future felt permeable, where something felt like memory that could not be memory, where the moment felt like it had already happened. The painting was the record of that, the proof that the vision was real. And then someone else in the group had the same experience, and then someone else. And suddenly, it was not a personal glitch. It was a shared phenomenon. Something that happened to everyone, repeatedly, across a lifetime. Something that must mean something. Whitley Strieber, in his analysis of early human religious experience, and Pascal Boyer independently, both note that déjà vu appears in the phenomenological literature of nearly every documented mystical tradition. The Sufi concept of Kash, a moment of unveiling where ordinary time seems transparent. The Hindu concept of Smriti, a sudden recognition of a truth that feels pre-existing. The prophetic tradition in the Hebrew Bible, where seers describe the future as something already seen. The Christian mystical concept of anamnesis, remembering something from before physical existence. None of these traditions originated in philosophy. They originated in experience, in the specific, neurologically produced experience of a moment that feels like a memory of a moment that has not happened yet. MS is not saying déjà vu proves any of these traditions right. MS is saying something more specific. The experience your brain produces every few months, lasting 3 seconds, casually dismissed as a brain glitch. That experience, felt without scientific context, is compelling enough to anchor an entire system of meaning. Compelling enough to build a cosmology around. Compelling enough that every human being who has ever lived, across every culture, across 300,000 years, has had to develop a framework to hold it. Because the feeling is real, the certainty is genuine. Only the explanation is wrong. And here is the part that MS keeps coming back to. Your brain is extremely good at detecting that something is wrong. That is what déjà vu is, a detection event, not a malfunction. Your brain noticed a conflict between your recognition system and your contextual memory system and flagged it for conscious review. In 3 seconds, it ran the check, found no supporting memory, and canceled the alert. Your ancestors ran the same check. found no supporting memory, and concluded that the memory must exist somewhere outside the brain, somewhere outside time. That conclusion is not stupid. It is the most reasonable conclusion available to a brain that does not know what a hippocampus is. And that conclusion, repeated across 300,000 years of human experience, across every culture, across every generation, by every person who has ever felt the world stop for 3 seconds and become briefly, impossibly familiar, built every temple, every prayer, every sacred text, every cosmology that has ever existed. 3 seconds. Every time. Last Tuesday I stopped mid-sentence and waited for what came next. And now, I cannot decide if knowing the neuroscience makes that feeling smaller, or if it makes every religion on earth more astonishing. Hi, I'm Marin Still, and now you can never unknow this.